The Cecil Soil Conservation District has chosen to honor the Carson family as the 2005 Cooperator of the Year. We wish to recognize the Carsons for their lifelong commitment to farming and conservation. The Carsons' 144-acre farm is located near Rising Sun along Biggs Highway. Many of you will recognize Greenhurst Farm, the home of Barbara and Jake Carson, by its close proximity to the road and by Mr. Carson's garden and beehives. Through the years, the farm operated as a registered Guernsey dairy. Jake's father, Jacob Bright Carson, purchased the farm in 1941. Mr. Carson and his two brothers helped their father, who Mr. Carson recalls as a good farmer, operate the dairy. Mr. Carson graduated from Rising Sun High School and then took a 10-day summer vacation and reported to Marine Boot Camp. Upon returning home in 1953, he and his father formed a partnership and purchased what is now the western side of the farm. Barbara and Jake were married in 1954, and from the 1950s through the mid-80s milked 50 registered Guernseys, raised hogs, and sold eggs from their flock of 200 hens. The Carsons raised 3 children, Stephen, Dottie, and Carolyn. As members of the Rising Sun Milk Squirters, many 4-H events were held on their farm, and son Stephen continued to farm full-time and partnered with his father. During the mid-80s, the operation focused on beef cattle and grain farming. With milking cows in their blood, the Carsons returned to dairying during the mid-90s, this time with Holsteins. With the untimely passing of their son Stephen in 2000, Mr. and Mrs. Carson leased the tillable land to a grain farmer and the pastures for grazing beef cattle. When asked what his favorite thing about farming is, Mr. Carson replies,
"I'll work with cows,"
which was apparent by the farm's frequent standing in the county's top 10 dairy herds. The opportunity to once again enjoy dairy cows on the farm was realized when the Stoltzfus family began leasing the farm in 2003. The Carsons' willingness to invest and work together with the Stoltzfuses to make improvements to the dairy facilities, the barnyard, and the manure handling system made it possible to operate Greenhurst Farm as a dairy again. At present, David and Priscilla Stoltzfus and their 4 children live in the farmhouse. They milk 42 cows, grow hay and corn for feed, and tobacco for a cash crop. They also raise dogs and offer homemade items for sale. Meanwhile, the Carsons have built a beautiful new ranch home adjacent to the farmstead, where Jake continues to be busy with his garden, fruit trees, and tending his beehives. It appears that Jake leaves the relaxation to their dog, Rusty. The Carsons take pride in the care of their land, and many conservation practices have been implemented on the farm.
This is some of the best ground in Cecil County.
Jake remembers that when farming with his father in the 1940s and 1950s, fields were laid out on the contour. They were rotated with row crops, small grain, and hay. He also recalls reseeding to improve pastures and even planting the grove of pine trees on a steep slope near the pond. Jake was among the very first farmers in the county to plant crops with no-till, starting that in the 1960s and 70s. During these years, the fields were also laid out in strips, alternating with hay and field crops. During the 1980s, several grass waterways were constructed, and a watering trough was built to be fed off the field tiles. The 1990s saw a pond constructed for sediment trapping and wildlife habitat. Runoff from a culvert underneath Biggs Highway was controlled with a new grassed waterway. The Carsons began practicing nutrient management with their cropping to help cut costs as well as to benefit the environment. In 1999, Mr. Carson felt that planting trees was a better use of a pastured area along a stream on the farm. He enrolled 16.5 acres into the Conservation Reserve program and fenced the cattle out to create a riparian stream buffer. In 2002, Mr. Carson approached the Cecil Soil Conservation District about constructing a manure management system as part of the upgrades needed to lease the farm to a dairyman. Working with the Stoltzfuses and the Carsons, the Cecil Soil Conservation District designed a system specific to the planned upgrades. The cows are milked in tie stalls. Manure and stall shavings enter the system through 2 barn gutters, leading to a concrete collection pit. There are no barn cleaners in the gutters. They are actually 3 feet deep, level, and are lined with smooth polyethylene. Like a septic tank, the biological treatment of the manure by microbes begins in these gutters and results in a flowable, liquefied waste product. This is important because the conveyance to the manure tank is through a 24-inch plastic pipeline. Dairy wastewater is piped from the milk house to the collection pit and also helps to liquefy the waste. Although roof gutters, spouts, and pipelines were added to the barns to direct excess rainfall away from the cow areas and manure facilities, some rain does fall onto the barnyard surface. This water mixes with manure and is collected into a barnyard inlet, which is tied into the pipeline leading to the tank. The manure from the barnyard can be removed to the scrape alley, leading to a push-off in the wall of the tank. The tank itself is circular, 65 feet in diameter and 10 feet deep. There is a capacity for approximately 4 months of waste storage. The liquid manure is pumped from the tank into a horse-drawn spreader. Manure is valuable as a fertilizer when used in accordance to a nutrient management plan. The systems are convenient, practical to maintain, handle waste efficiently, and serve to protect the stream flowing through the farm from runoff leaving the dairy facility. The Stoltzfuses have restored the strip cropping to most of the farm's tillable land, growing corn and hay to feed their cows, horses, and mules. Thus, they are able to control soil erosion while using conventional tillage and to gain the benefit of efficiently rotating their crops. The Stoltzfuses are rotationally grazing the 12-acre field west of the barn. The field is divided into approximately 2-acre paddocks by movable electric fences. The cows move from paddock to paddock before overgrazing occurs. This provides more and better forage for the cows by promoting the growth of the grasses and legumes. Additionally, having a thick cover of vegetation protects the field from soil erosion. Since the streams on the farm are fenced away from the livestock, the Stoltzfuses have developed a movable, pressurized, and economical means to bring water from the barn source to the pastures. A bowl with a float valve and hose fittings attached to a water line laid on the ground, making a simple and efficient way to keep livestock out of the stream. Cows and mule-drawn equipment travel this lane, which has become a potential erosion issue. The Carsons and the Stoltzfuses plan to address this in the coming year with assistance from the Natural Resources Conservation Service and Cecil Soil Conservation District through the Environmental Quality Incentives Program. Filter cloth and stone will be placed in the lane to create a stabilized, hard surface for the traffic. The Cecil Soil Conservation District commends the Stoltzfus family for their efforts to carry on with the conservation stewardship of the Carson farm. The Carsons are thankful to live in the country, to not be cooped up, and to be able to enjoy their gardening, their fruit trees, and the simple pleasures of watching the cows, the mules, and their new neighbors who now call the farm home. Their commitment to their land and to farming is evident in the many ways they have made conservation a part of Greenhurst Farm. The Board of Supervisors and the entire staff of the Cecil Soil Conservation District takes great pleasure in congratulating Jake and Barbara Carson as 2005's Outstanding Cooperator of the Year.